Hello, welcome to Conversations. I'm Jim Below, your host. Very pleased to have joining me today Howard Lazarus, the administrator for the city of Ann Arbor. Welcome to Conversations.
Thank you.
And you've been the city administrator now for what, just around 15 months?
About 15 months.
Has it been what you thought it was going to be?
It has. It's been a lot of fun. Every day is different, but it's a great place to live and work.
And what does the day of an administrator look like? In other words, what types of things are you expected and end up doing on a fairly regular basis?
Well, a typical day for me starts generally around 5:30 in the morning.
Wow.
I'll get up and exercise in the morning, usually make my way into the office by about 7:30. The early morning hours are valuable because while the city itself is getting ready to start the day, I get a chance to go through some administrative things. The weeks are usually filled with a variety of meetings, both internal and external. Most of the days things kind of quiet down a little after 5, but several days a week we'll have either council meetings, committee meetings, commission meetings, or meetings with neighborhood groups. So sometimes the days can extend, but most normal business is done on a very calm way. The staff handles it very well, so most of the day is spent dealing with larger issues or things that pop up that are of concern.
And in Ann Arbor, our structure is that we have an elected mayor and council,
Right.
and then they hire you to do the day-to-day, you say, running of the city.
The city administrator generally is the chief executive officer of the city. The council is the board of directors. They set policy, they approve the finances for the city, and they rely on the city administrator, the service area administrators and directors to conduct the day-to-day business, to make sure that services are provided fairly, compassionately, and efficiently.
And so you, in a sense, oversee, I won't say all, because there are, two other positions that are responsible back to council? Is that correct?
No,
Or is it just one other?
the only other position
Okay.
that reports directly to council is the city attorney.
Okay.
Now, there are a couple other positions that are affiliated with the city government, but those are not normally considered to be daily direct reports.
So you do oversee all except the attorney's office, you could say you do oversee all different aspects of the city. You mentioned sort of the departmental or the different areas, service areas. How many do you now have established that you oversee? What used to be called department chairs, but now the terminology has changed.
Well, there are really 4 main service areas. There's finance, there's community services, which are the parks, the planners, the permitters, and the inspections. There's public services, which are public works and engineering, all the transportation assets, solid waste management, drainage, water and wastewater treatment, all the typical public works functions. And then there's public safety, police and fire. In addition to that, we have a communications branch. We have our HR department. We have a safety office as well. There's the city administrator's office. And then there are the liaisons with the Housing Commission, the Pension Board, the AAATA, as well as governmental relations.
And in all of those, in overseeing it, you mentioned that the staff does a good job as far as the day-to-day operations. One of the things that over the past few years has at times come into question is the budget. Mm-hmm. And where does the city stand now as far as our budget, and are we not doing things because of a lack of money? Are we beginning to be able to bring back some of the items that might have been reduced, say, 5, 8 years ago?
Well, let me just state that staff does an exceptional job. Yeah. I want to state that. Yeah, the budget is it's balanced, it's healthy. We are the most efficient governmental organization I've ever worked with in terms of size of staff and the cost of doing business. There are still strains that exist. There are things that we would like to do that I don't think we're able to get to, but the core set of services that the citizens expect from us, I think we do very well. The challenge is to plan for the future, and another part of that is to work on the system to make it better, as opposed to working in the system, which is a day-to-day operation. I have gotten a couple of citizens who volunteer to help me, one in the area of sustainability and one in economic development. And I think that's encouraging because it is a way for the residents of Ann Arbor to participate in their government and affect the future.
Another aspect that you mentioned, the volunteers to help you, is that you have to work on a regular basis, not only with other governmental units, the county, your surrounding cities and townships, where it's not as clear cut maybe as it was 20 years ago of the boundaries on everything almost. But you have the university,
Right.
you have other factors. Overall, how does that interaction both take place, and how would you rate it as far as effectiveness in working with other governmental units and working with the university?
Well, there are formal structures for doing that, whether it's with the county, the university, or other organizations. But the truth is, things get done because of relationships, and building those relationships is important. Trust among the different entities is critical, and you find areas of common interest where we can work together. Sometimes pulling the pieces together, particularly from a funding standpoint, can be a little bit complicated. But all the entities that operate in and around Ann Arbor are all dedicated towards this being a great place to live and work. And when we find those areas of common interest, we can get them done.
To what extent has the relationship with the university either changed or been able to develop and grow? Because one of the concerns has been everything from the issue of taxation and the fact that the university and property that the university has is not taxable as far as the actual property itself. It is as far as the use tax. So it's not use tax, but the personal property tax aspect.
Well, the university is exempt
Yeah.
from local property taxes. It's an interesting and complicated relationship because even though they don't pay property taxes, their presence is a very stabilizing, not only a stabilizing influence in Ann Arbor, but they also help us attract other businesses. So that helps our property values grow. We do have the highest taxable value in the state. And the university does participate in projects when they have frontage along a road, for example. They support art fair, they provide Summerfest, they provide assistance. The cooperation between the Ann Arbor Police and the University Police is exceptional. So, as long as we keep talking, as long as we have the open relationship, the community will thrive and benefit from it.
And you get the sense that they, from their perspective, are more than willing, let's say, to continue to work with the city whenever possible. But they still have to make decisions that they think are in the best interest of the university, and maybe keep the city informed, but still look at it from a different perspective.
Well, in addition to being an exceptional educational organization, it's still a business to run, and they have to pay their bills as well. So, and they have to pay attention to that. They are going through a period like all governmental and related enterprises are, with changes in federal funding. They've got to constantly adjust their business model while sustaining their standards of excellence. So they understand our concerns, we understand their concerns. There are good people trying to do good things, and we make it work.
And in looking then at the surrounding other governmental units, over the past 5 to 10 years, it seems like there's more effort to consolidate, save money in some cases by having some services that are working together with the county or with the surrounding townships and that, whether it is the communications and things like that. Are there other areas that are still being looked at as ways of both saving money but also being more efficient and providing better services, not just for the citizens of Ann Arbor, but the whole county?
There are. The Health and Human Services are consolidated at the county level. We have tremendous collaboration on the issue of community affordability and housing affordability. We work with the other communities in Washtenaw County, the city of Ypsilanti, the township. There are groups that get together both formally and informally, and we are constantly looking at ways to achieve better efficiency by working with the county.
And in those, are there any specific, you say, areas or plans that in the next couple months or the next year that you can see a shift or a change in how something might be done in the city because of the both influence and concern about resolving?
I'll give you one good example, and that is in the area of solid waste management. we in the city are at a point where we want to look to the future on how we want to handle solid waste, resource recovery, and we've approached the county to help lead a discussion on maybe there are some benefits to doing it on a regional basis in terms of not just cost, but also achieving a greater diversion of material going to landfills. And I'm excited about that.
I would say it would seem that both, as you mentioned, the cost that by sheer volume you might be able to save money by having the whole county together, but also, if Ann Arbor is doing a 21st century recycling program, but the surrounding areas are not bought into it as much, well, yes, we may be helping the recycling effort, but it'd be better if everyone, you might say, was bought into it.
Well, I think there are areas where we can look to see if there are benefits of having a larger customer base consolidated, give us stronger negotiating position. And there are some other areas we may look at. We may look at areas in fleet management. There are certainly collaborations on parks and making those appear seamless. There's always the ongoing collaboration with the County Road Commission and the state on roadways, because most people don't care if it's a state or a local road. They care that it's well kept and they can get to where they want to go quickly.
Well, I want to thank, and we're going to take a short break, come back and look at some of the future ideas and plans and some of the things that the people of Ann Arbor might be able to look forward to. Take about a couple-minute break and be back in just a moment. Thank you.
CTN Sports, bringing local sports to you.
Hello, welcome back to Conversations. I'm speaking with Howard Lazarus, the administrator for the city of Ann Arbor. Want to look a little bit more to the future with some plans, and often when we start looking to the future, things like money enter in as far as what really realistically can be done. But a couple issues that have been in the media and talked about ongoing is a pathway, a green beltway, different terminology over the years, throughout the city to get connected from one, you could say, one end of the city to the other. First of all, what terminology is being used now for this, and where do things stand?
So the current terminology for what was the Allen Creek Greenway is now the Tree Line Trail. And on paper, the current Phase 1 extends from North Main, where it connects to the border trail, and then weaves
Which is a county-wide trail.
right, which is actually going to be connected statewide.
Right.
And then that weaves its way through the downtown, past the university, down to Stimson and State.
Street, yeah.
And then the second phase goes down along State, down through to the southern border of the city.
Okay. And to do that, once again, it's an example of what we were talking about before, of cooperation and collaboration with different governmental units, but public and private property owners, and you know, where you should say Phase 2, what we're getting ready for, or we're in the process now?
Well, the primary reason we established a Phase 2 was to ensure that we didn't do anything with other capital improvements that would preclude the trail or the Greenway extending in the future. But the Phase 1 is an interesting amalgamation of different interests. There's certainly city interest, there's county, there's money from the state and funding from the state, there's participation potentially by private entities and utilities as well. And the challenge that the city faces as the owners of the master plan is to weave all that together into a really exceptional project that improves quality of life, improves connections, and actually has a beneficial environmental impact.
Well, as you mentioned, not only environmental, but also is a multi-environmental in the sense of getting more people to use non-motorized vehicles to
Right.
move about the city. Not only does it help them individually, but also the community as a whole.
Right.
You know, and also to encourage a variety of both, you might say, recreational, but also almost business being developed in support of these projects.
Well, it's certainly clear, and there's statistical data from around the country that connection to non-motorized bicycle and pedestrian facilities helps business. People are moving slower, they tend to stop more, and they'll spend more money. The integration of nature into our daily lives is also very healthy, but changing the culture to get people to leave their car at home and either walk or bike to work, or date night can now include the trip to where you're going, as opposed to just getting there and enjoying the destination. You can enjoy the trip as well.
Right. And the timetable of all this, is that part of the phases, and how can people sort of keep track of where things are at and how things are developing?
Well, on the Tree Line Trail, you'll be able to access documents off the city's website. The master plan is currently out for community-wide review. We hope to wrap that up by the end of the year. At the same time, the Allen Creek or Tree Line Conservancy is working on a business plan that will help us execute it, so that we can look at this as a true public-private partnership and take the plan and not have it something that sits on the shelf, that we can actually deliver a tremendous amenity for the community in a reasonable time frame.
Right. Now, you mentioned till the end of the year having community input in that. How can people, are there meetings scheduled, and how can they find out when and where those meetings are taking place? And if they want to voice opinions on the plan, how can that take place?
Well, you can always take comment. The documents are all available electronically. The city will hold town hall type meetings, as well as go through the various boards and commissions that exist. All that information is also available through the city's social media outlets, and word of mouth is a tremendously strong way of communicating well.
Right. Now, not directly related to that, but recently a sort of decision as far as the first choice, if you want to refer to it as the best possible location for a new rail center, was announced, I want to say just this past week, as far as what is recommended as the first choice, being along Fuller Road, near the sort of just below the hospital, let's say it. That is dependent upon what? I mean, because we've heard about this rail possibility for many, many years.
Right.
totally depend on the federal government, or is this something that most likely may still proceed with uncertainty still?
Well, the project was funded using the environmental assessment and preliminary engineering was funded using federal money.
Right.
Therefore, we have to comply with federal rules.
Right.
And that means we have to do an environmental assessment in accordance with NEPA. That process was completed last week. We got sign-off from the Federal Railroad
Okay.
Administration on Friday. The document went into the public domain Monday. There's a minimum 30-day public comment period. We're actually going to have it out for comment in 45 days.
Does that comment, is that local, or to the federal government Department of Transportation?
Well, it's an open process.
Okay.
Anyone who wants to comment can comment. We will take the results of that input. We'll respond to every comment that we get. And while that's going on, we'll continue the preliminary engineering. And hopefully by the end of the year, that results in a finding of no significant impact.
Right.
Going through that process opens up the door for us to seek other sources of funds to proceed with detailed design and then into construction. That future is a little bit uncertain because we don't know where that money's coming from, but the preferred local alternative for a location of the train station is the Fuller Road site.
Right. And is that information now online, even though it was just put in the public on Monday, or is that something that's in the process of being made available for everyone to be able to look at and then, as you say, make comment about?
Well, the draft final environmental assessment is available off the city's webpage.
Okay.
There's also a hard copy available at the city clerk's office on the second floor of City Hall, and there's a hard copy available for review in the downtown branch of the Ann Arbor District Library.
Okay. Well, nice transition mentioning the district library, because that's another issue that seems to keep coming up, and that is the what will this? Well, the city has sold the rights to the parking, the lot, so to speak, what's referred to as the library lot,
Right.
even though it's not owned or controlled by the library, it's the city's, as far as both construction and use of that space next to the library, to a company business, out of Chicago, I believe?
Out of Chicago.
So now it's really in their hands because the city's agreed to allow them to proceed, pending site plan approval is next?
Well, this is still a real estate transaction. Okay. We still are working with Core Spaces on the agreement that essentially transfers the development rights above ground to them. And we're working on that with them, and I hope and expect that that'll reach a successful conclusion. So at the time of closing, the city will receive $10 million, and then we have the parking revenue that's associated with it. Okay. And they at that point, they still have to go through a site plan review.
Okay, so the process continues, right. And it fits in with the larger picture of downtown usage, let's say, or the it fits in with the trail, it fits in with different forms of transportation, of how the whole downtown region and area is going to both look and be used. One of the areas that we've not talked about is housing, and both affordable housing and providing space, because Ann Arbor has very limited, you could say, land for development. Is that a fair way of, as far as for housing especially? What can the city do to help not just encourage, but provide moderate low-income housing? Because that's something I know council is interested in looking at.
Well, there's a lot of issues in there.
Yeah.
The first one is under state statutes, we're limited as to what we can demand, so
right.
Things have to be negotiated.
As far as from private developers.
Well, we don't have the ability
right.
to require a certain number of affordable units. There's no such thing as inclusionary zoning. Okay. State doesn't allow rent control. So when we work with a private developer, the business aspect, particularly if it's city property involved, is to work that into the deal. So city properties provide an opportunity for us to develop housing that's affordable, not just for the very low income and people who need supportive services, but also for moderate income, the term that some people like to use is workforce housing. So that all becomes part of the plans and how we develop. We do have to look at being more dense, having more density in housing as a way to increase the availability of housing that's affordable. Part of that also is having housing that's connected to transportation so that people don't have to have a second car or even any vehicle, particularly with ride share and autonomous vehicles on the horizon. The world as we know it in that regard is changing very rapidly.
And it's both having the foresight to anticipate what it may look like 5, 10, 20 years down the road,
Right.
but also the ability to make changes along the way. In other words, you might look in one direction and then 10 years from now shift it somewhat. And within the downtown, once again, it's somewhat limited because my impression is that there's not a strong desire to see the downtown expand into the Old West Side, or the university is not likely to allow private development necessarily on their property. So we are, in a sense, limited in space.
Well, preserving the character of the community is important. People come here because of the characteristics of a Midwestern town.
Yeah.
We're not realizing that's a very vibrant city beneath that. So you got to be careful about how development occurs, and you want to make sure that we are protective of our neighborhoods while we also try and connect them.
Yeah.
So those are all challenges. We don't have a lot of undeveloped land, but the nature of land changes. Large parking lots in the future, we may not need those anymore. You see across the country there are large big box stores that are closing. Shopping malls are being repurposed. So there is the opportunity to build and convert current land uses to provide greater opportunities for people who work here to live here.
Well, in the last minute here, looking 6 to 12 months down the road, what's one other issue that you see yourself and the city working on that the people may, I won't say be surprised, but will be hopefully pleased a year from now that the city was able to address and work on?
We talked before a little bit about solid waste management. I think we'll see some changes in how we approach resource recovery and becoming more sustainable. And that touches a lot of people in different ways, not just economically, but we want to preserve the spirit of the community to be a leading force in how that area is addressed. I think also one thing that has been kind of quietly proceeding is how our police department relates with the community. We have an exceptional police department, but part of, to steal a phrase, being the leaders and best, is to constantly evolve. Right. And Chief Barrett and I, along with the police department, are looking about how we can ensure our police department is better connected to the community.
And that's been ongoing because there's been an analysis of the relationship, let's say, between the police and the community and the people here. And that's ongoing?
It is.
Yeah.
We should have the report that we had an outside consultant do available to the public within the next couple of weeks as well. So there are a lot of things that have been going on that are all coming to bear fruit at the same time.
Great. I want to thank you for joining us this afternoon. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
I want to thank our viewers for joining us and look forward to your continued support here on Conversations. Thank you.